Deborah Brown saw Jason's presentation at the Grant Professionals Association National Conference, and I'm going to hand it over to Deborah to introduce our speaker. So thanks so much for coming, everyone.
Thank you, Allison. So I just want to say that I'm here on behalf of our program committee, as Allison alluded to, and I'd like you to know, as Allison said, that this is being recorded. So please keep yourself muted when you're not speaking, and you can utilize the chat function for questions, or just wait until our speaker, Jason, takes questions, which he will do at a couple of important points in the presentation. And I will be sending slides and the recording to you after the presentation, and we will post the recording on our website. And I want to tell you that you're in for a real treat. I saw Jason at GPA and he was fantastic. And that's really saying something, because Lydia, who is our founder, has also done a take on this, and she's great. And it's kind of interesting to have these two different people with two different kinds of takes, giving information on how to find funders to all of us. So I want to let you know that Jason, his name is Jason Adkins, has raised $125 million in competitive grants and donations for organizations of different sizes and sectors since 2008, including startup nonprofits, a major regional nonprofit, and one of the nation's 30 largest school districts. In 2017, he earned the Grant Professional Certified GPC credential, and he is a frequent trainer of grant writers and fundraisers through Grant Writing USA and Center for Nonprofit Excellence. Jason is the Director of Development at the Ohio Valley Educational Cooperative. He was a popular presenter at the latest GPA conference and will now reprise his memorable session on research. Jason will cover 6 prospecting strategies for finding foundation, government, and other funding. And Jason, we are thrilled to have you here today, and it's all yours. Take it away.
Thanks, Deborah. I appreciate the intro, and thank you, Chapter, for having me. I love GPA chapters. So I've had several reach out for me to do this presentation. I'm so happy to do it. My chapter, the Kentucky chapter of GPA, has helped me so much professionally. I've gotten jobs through my chapter. I've learned some skills, and I'm so glad that you are involved in your local chapter. I'm very excited to present to you today, how'd you find that funder? The title of my presentation actually comes from a real life situation. So I worked for a long time at a school district, and I had a boss that was really awesome with grants. She's really well known. Her name is Becky Crump, and some of you may know her. She presents at National GPA. And I'd been working for her for a couple of years, and she kind of set me loose to find some funding for playgrounds. And I ended up finding a prospect list, and we submitted a grant and we got it. And when we got it, she looked at the funder's name and she asked, how'd you find that funder? Which to me was such a compliment, because she's been around and she knows everyone. And so I felt like I was onto something, that I might know what I'm doing with prospecting. And I really love this part of our work. And that's why I love doing this presentation. And I hope that you'll get a few tips today that will help you have a moment where your boss goes, how did you find this? Or where a client goes, I've never heard of that funder. Thank you so much for finding them. And I hope that this session will prepare you for that moment in your career. So a little bit more about me, and Deborah told you some of this, but I just want to give you a few more details. So I'm a director of development for an education nonprofit called OVEC, the Ohio Valley Educational Cooperative. As director of development, I oversee grant writing and fundraising, and oh boy, other duties as assigned. And I'm sure some of you have that either in your contract or your services agreement if you're a consultant. And for me, that means a lot of things. Sometimes I pretend to be a lawyer. Sometimes I pretend to be an architect. A lot of things end up under that line item in my job description. And when you're the grants person, you're smart, you're good at what you do, this happens to you. You get a lot of things pushed your way. But I love what I do. I help a large region of 15 school districts. There are 250 schools in that area and over 155,000 students. And we have urban, suburban, rural school districts. And I'm trying to find funding to support programs that help these schools, these districts, and these students. My previous work, I worked at Jefferson County Public Schools for 3 years as a grant developer. And that's one of the 30 largest school districts in the nation. And that was a really great experience. I also, for a time, did some consulting work with local nonprofits. I was doing that on the side, and it was pretty tough to do. I was getting up at 4 in the morning and writing grants for clients, and then going to my other grant writing job. So eventually I retired from that line of work, but it was really great experience just to work with some other types of organizations in my career. I have a range of experience. I've done the following things, and I hope this will make you feel like you can relate to my experience. I hope we share some of these experiences. I've begged people on Facebook for $10. Anyone had to do that? As a fundraiser, our giving days, all my friends, I'm like, please, like just $10, it's the minimum. You've probably had to do that before too. I spent way too much time on a $500 mini grant. Is anyone guilty of this? As working for a school district, there'd be a teacher that would find a $500 grant, and I would get so excited about her idea, and I would just get competitive, and I mean, man, we're getting this grant, and I would put probably way more than $500 of time and energy into that grant. I've labored over online grant applications with the character limits. I'm sure all of you have done that too. Where you feel like you delete words for a living, right? You write this great grant, and you got to put it in the system, and you end up having to delete words that are precious to you. I've worked for 9 months on a $50 million federal grant, where it felt like if we didn't get it, I probably needed to update my resume. Fortunately, we got it, so it was a good use of time and a life-changing program for a lot of children and families. And then I've been a reviewer for foundation, state, and federal grants. I highly encourage you to do this in your career. If you ever have the opportunity to serve as a reviewer, it will really impact your writing. You'll learn your audience, who you're writing for, and I try to bring that perspective to my trainings as well. All right, what qualifies me to talk about prospecting? Well, for 14 years, people have stopped by my office.
I'm just gonna interrupt for a minute. We're only seeing black. Should we be seeing a slide?
Oh, I'm so glad you interrupted. You should be seeing a slide. Let's fix that.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you said something, Allison. I just spent 10 minutes in my settings trying to figure this out.
Are we there now?
Yes.
People see it? Okay, wow. Allison, you saved the day. All right, so what qualifies me to talk about prospecting? For 14 years, people have been asking me, is there a grant for iPads, a new van, a chicken coop? That's probably the most interesting request that I've gotten from somebody. You probably have this too. Maybe you have a group of program people that stop by your office and knock on the door and ask, is there a grant for? And then you try to find it. You do that long enough, you get pretty good at prospecting. In my experience as a consultant, I've always tried to impress new clients, and maybe this is your role as well. You bring them a list of new funding opportunities, and they're excited to see some new names. So I always try to impress them and add value. As a trainer for several years now, I've been creating a calendar of grant opportunities, and this is for nonprofits in Kentucky. So that's really helped me find new funders and put on different hats and think about their perspective. And call me crazy, but I enjoy this. I really like prospecting. Maybe that's you as well, but I just like the challenge of, is there a grant for? And then I've used the strategies we're going to talk about today to raise $125 million in competitive funding. So I always use this slide just to say, if you don't think I can teach you something, now's your chance. Leave the meeting or turn your camera off, browse social media. Never waste time in a training that you couldn't lead yourself. I think you're going to learn something today, and I hope that it will be a beneficial session for you, but don't waste your time if you know all this. All right, so the purpose of this session, I'm going to provide an overview of 6 grant prospecting strategies. We could do more strategies than 6, but these are 6 that I think apply to a lot of different sectors. As we do this overview, I'm targeting a specific competency. The Grant Professional Certified Competency here is to increase your awareness of methods of locating funding sources. So I think you're going to learn at least a couple of new methods today as we look at these strategies. And I want to show you how prospecting can be fun. All right, these are the 6 prospecting strategies. I'm going to warn you that the next little bit, you're going to get a ton of content. So I hope that you can come back to these slides and come back to this recording and review some of these strategies. I think you'll come away with 1 or 2 that you can try right away. But I also think that there are some strategies here that are long-term for you that you can come back to in a few months and try out. These are the 6 strategies we're going to review today. And let's get started with research routines. This to me is the most critical prospecting strategy. I want to help you avoid getting this email. I call this the Grant Pro's worst nightmare. Now, this isn't an actual email, but it's similar to one that I got back in 2008, early on in my career. And my organization, we do a lot of Head Start grants. Maybe some of you are Head Start grantees too. This is an example of an email you don't want to get. So this would be from my Head Start director, sent to me, and my CEO is copied on it. Hey, Jason, I just saw this grant from the Office of Head Start. It's due Friday. Did you know about it? Oh, this is one of the worst grants one of the worst emails you can get. You're just like, oh, I look unprofessional, unprepared. I look like I don't know what I'm doing. Well, how do you respond to this kind of situation? You could pretend like you're out of office, right? You can send an email that says, I'm sorry, I'm out of office until next Friday, and try to avoid the situation. But really what you need to do is to learn from it and to be proactive and avoid getting this email in the future. And the way I do that is through a research routine. And that's a proactive process for finding grant opportunities. I'm going to show you what my process looks like. And your process will need to be individualized for your organization and for your work, but I'll at least show you how I do it. And there are so many benefits to having a research routine. It's going to minimize chaos. You're going to get fewer of those emails that says, this is due Friday. Did you know about it? It's going to maximize your work time. So if you know about opportunities as soon as possible, that gives you more time to work on them, more time to prepare a quality application. And when you use this process on an ongoing basis, you're going to become confident, and you're going to convey that confidence to your coworkers, and you're going to impress your boss. All right, so starting a research routine. This is going to seem very basic, and that's because it is. It's pretty simple to get started. I'll walk you through how to start it, and then I'll show you my routine. So the way you do this is you think about your organization. You think about the sector that you're in, the type of work that you do. Identify good fit funders. And these will be pretty much common sense. If you are an education nonprofit, you're going to look at the U.S. Department of Education for federal grants. You're going to look at your state Department of Education for state grants. And then I can walk you through on how to use a foundation directory to find some major foundation funders that are interested in education. Think about your sector and some good fit funders. You might do some Googling at this point. Once you identify those good fit funders, get familiar with their public information. So look at their website, look at their publication, see what they put out there to inform you about grants. Then you're going to bookmark these websites, these relevant websites, and visit them on a regular basis. Now you might be asking, Jason, how often is a regular basis? Well, my question back to you is, how good do you want to be at this? You might be able to do this twice a month. You might do it when your paycheck comes, the beginning and the middle of the month, or the middle and the end of the month. And that might be good enough. You might see some new opportunities when you do this twice a month and find some things you can apply for. It would be better if you did this on a weekly basis. where you or someone in your organization once a week is going through these good fit funders, looking at their information. But to be honest with you, your best approach is going to be to do this daily. You and someone at your organization looking at these websites, these publications on a daily basis. And I tell you daily because honestly, if you wait to do it twice a month or you do it once a week, people like me are already working on our applications. So if you wait to do it, in a couple weeks, and I've already found the app, I'm already putting together a good application, you're behind in the competition. So some of this really, you can nuance it. It depends on how much grants are important to your work and how often you work on them. But if you want to do this best, if you want to be really good at it, do this daily. All right, so here is my research routine. I'm going to walk you through these different categories and show you some examples. I start my routine at 5:45 a.m. Eastern. A lot of days it takes 5 to 10 minutes. And there are days it takes longer when I find something new that I need to read. I'll walk you through each of these. I spend quite a bit of time on grants.gov. I look at the Federal Register Public Inspection Desk. I'll show you what that is. I look at agency grant pages and forecast and some major foundation websites. All right, so grants.gov. Grants.gov is meant to be the one-stop shop for federal grants, for finding information about them, for submitting your federal grants. There are a couple federal agencies that have their own systems, but they're supposed to be using grants.gov and accept them through there as well. If you go to grants.gov and you look at their search tab, you will see that there are over 2,000 entries on a daily basis of grant opportunities, grant notices, other announcements, and none of us have time to read 2,000 plus entries on grants.gov. So I want to show you just a couple tools that I use to find the grants that I need to on grants.gov. The search tab is the primary tool that I use. I use it to filter down to the opportunities I need to see. There are a couple tools I'll show you on the search tab. One of those that I like is the CFDA number. CFDA is the Catalog of Federal Domestic Assistance. Every federal grant opportunity has a CFDA number linked to it. It's what helps get money translated from appropriations to grant making. I have memorized the CFDA numbers that are important to me. You can have a list of them. And you can enter them in manually to your search tab on grants.gov, and it's a way to quickly find grants that you want. I've listed one here, CFDA number 93.600. In the chat, would anyone like extra credit? Anyone know what that is? I cannot see my chat bar for some reason right now, so I will tell you that it is Head Start. If anyone guessed Head Start, you are the lucky winner. Another filter that I use is agency and sub-agency filters. And I'm going to show you visual of this as well. It's just a way to find your good fit funders and what they've put on grants.gov that's new. All right, so this is what the search tab looks like. And actually what I will do here is I will switch over to show you what this looks like. These are a little blurry, so let me just switch my screen real quick to show you what that looks like. All right, so if you're on grants.gov, you want to find the search grants tab. Everyone seeing that now where I've gone there? All right, and you'll see if you click on there that there are 2,700 postings on grants.gov right now. If you think about your good fit funders, your agency tab is one place where you're going to be able to find information very easily. So I do a lot of education grants. When I visit the search tab, I'm going to go to the U.S. Department of Education and see what's new. So I'm going to look for what's been posted recently. And I'll look down here for opportunities. If something's new, I'm going to click on the information and learn more about the opportunity. See when the deadline is, how much money is available. I'm going to find the actual notice inviting applications on here to learn more about the grant. Some agencies, though, have so many different sub-agencies. It's useful to know how to find them. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, for example, they have 1,200 grant notices and postings on grants.gov. So it's really useful to know this little plus mark over here will find these sub-agencies for you. Again, I do a lot of Head Start grants, so I could go down here and find the Office of Head Start and really narrow down the number of opportunities that I have to look through. Here's my Office of Head Start, one grant available right now. So that's just a quick crash course on using grants.gov and the search filter tools. All right, is everyone back on my PowerPoint now? Can I get some head nods? Can y'all see the PowerPoint?
You know, we did, and
No.
now it's a black screen again.
Black screen again, that is interesting.
I think it's a graphics formatting issue. There you go. We see it now.
All right. Just to make sure I'll stay in this screen, it'll look a little different, but I don't want you to miss anything. So grants.gov opportunities email. This is another way I stay on top of what's new on grants.gov. They offer an email subscription where you can have all new opportunities emailed to you. You get an email of postings from the previous day, which is really great. It typically comes around 2 a.m. So just a warning there for you. I don't want you to have your phone next to you and hear the ding at 2 a.m. But when you get this email, it gives you everything posted on grants.gov in the previous day. And that's, I scroll through it quickly just to see if there's anything new. Sometimes it takes me 30 seconds and there are a lot of things on there that I don't need. But occasionally I found a grant on there that I'd never heard of before that I found because every day I look at this email to see what's new. If you want to start getting the subscription and get these federal grant opportunities right in your inbox, you're going to go to the Connect tab on grants.gov and you'll find there a Manage Subscriptions link and you can subscribe to all new opportunities. And that's a way to get that email in your inbox. All right. Another part of my routine is look at the Federal Register Public Inspection Desk. So the Federal Register is the official publication of the U.S. government. You're going to find this has notices and regulations from all different agencies. But the Federal Register Public Inspection Desk is where some of these agencies pre-file their documents before they end up in the Federal Register. So the Public Inspection Desk has the inspiring motto, tomorrow's documents today. You feel a little bit like you're in a time machine. You're getting to see the future when you go to the Public Inspection Desk. Several agencies post their grant opportunities on the Public Inspection Desk before it goes anywhere else. And it's typically 2 days before it ends up on grants.gov and before it ends up on the Federal Register. The U.S. Department of Education is a common one. Their notice inviting applications will show up on this page before anywhere else. And in those 2 days, I have read the pre-filed version. I've made a one-pager. I've sent it to staff in my organization so they can see what's coming. And often we know if we're going to apply before other agencies even see the NIA. Let me show you real quick what this looks like. I'm going to switch screens again. Just want to show you what it looks like. This is the Federal Register Public Inspection Desk. Today's posting, you'll see they updated it at 11:15 a.m., but I'm always checking at 8:45 a.m. So May 19th, 8:45 a.m. There's a list of agencies that have filed on the Public Inspection Desk. Again, I'm really interested in Education Department, so I'm going to look there. And voila, there is an application for new awards. And it's for a specific program here. I actually can get on and download this PDF, and I'll even show you what that looks like. This is a pre-filed version of the notice inviting applications for this program, the Child Care Access Means Parents in School program. You'll scroll through. It looks a little different than what it shows up in the NIA because there are some blanks. They don't have the dates in there because it hasn't gone to the Federal Register yet. This is kind of an advanced copy of the grant application. And I can go through and I can read the purpose of the program, the number of awards that are going to be offered. It's like seeing the future. It's a time machine. This is not a lot of people know about this. So everyone on this call, I want to swear you to secrecy that you won't tell anyone else so that we have the advantage over our competition. So that's the Federal Register Public Inspection Desk. All right, I look at agency grant pages and forecast on a daily basis. Again, I explore websites of good fit federal and state funders. I bookmark their pages with grant information, and I visit them on a daily basis. Some examples. The U.S. Department of Education has a grant forecast page that they update sporadically. So I go to that page and I look at what's new today. Does anything look different than the day before? The U.S. Department of Labor, Employment and Training Administration, their funding opportunities page. That's another example. That's a good fit funder for me. I visit that page on a daily basis. SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Agency. They have the fiscal year 22 NOFO forecast. NOFO is Notice of Funding Opportunity. You can go on there and you can see what they're forecasting for the year ahead. Sometimes they'll have on there the anticipated deadline, the number of awards they're going to offer. Very useful information. On these pages, I look for date stamps. Some of them have it at the top or the bottom of their page. It doesn't look like a recent date. There's new information been put out. If there's not a date stamp, I look for differences. Is there new information? Has the organization changed? Is the page longer than it used to be? Those are all hints to me that something new has appeared. I used to print these pages, but now I'm trying to be a little more friendly on the environment and just look for visual differences. The usefulness of these pages, it depends on the funder's goodwill and how often they update it and how seriously they take it. They don't have to do this, but some of them are nice to do it. One of these funders for the longest time in 2019 had a really funny looking date. August 15A, I'm not sure what that meant, 2019. It was like that for months. So it depends on the administration and how seriously they take their page. All right, so that's agency grant pages and forecast. I visit them on a daily basis and look for what's new. Your next tip here is to look at major foundation web pages. Your boss, your board, your clients, they may have asked about the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It's going to happen to you at some point. Hey, can we get some of that Gates money? Eventually, you're going to need to crush their dreams and tell them we're probably not getting a grant from this funder. Until then, you can bookmark the Gates Foundation opportunities page and you can monitor it. So you could tell your boss, board, client, I'm actively monitoring this funder for opportunities. Because the Gates Foundation, they offer everything through an RFP process. So cultivation is a little different with this funder. While you're at it, bookmark pages for some national foundations. A couple for you to consider: the Kellogg Foundation, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. Maybe think about some regional funders. In my area of Kentucky, there's the James Graham Brown Foundation, the Live to Life Novak Family Foundation. I visit these on a daily basis just to see what's new. Once you've set up your bookmarks, your browser will look something like this. I have a group of federal and state agency pages here. The Federal Register Public Inspection Desk is the first bookmark there. I'll work my way through these at 8:45 a.m. and check to see if there's anything new. My major foundations, they're all under other bookmarks. Occasionally, I'll have a staff member that goes to a conference and they come back and tell me, hey, I think a funder is going to make a grant. And when I hear that, I'll put that funder also in the other bookmarks folder as an anticipated opportunity. Once you've set this up, then it's up to you to diligently follow your routine. At that point, if you're doing this daily, you're going to become an expert in grant opportunities. You're really going to know what's out there. All right. This is really the key strategy. So I want to pause now for questions. Any questions about research routines, starting them, what websites you should be visiting? I'm going to check the chat. Feel free to enter your question there. Happy to clarify on anything before we move on to the other strategies. Any questions about research routines? I see a hand raised. Deborah, do you want to chime in with a question?
Sure. I subscribe to a platform, Instrumental, and there are other platforms out there. And I'm wondering what you think about the value of individual, doing what you're suggesting in terms of bookmarking individual foundations and working with some of these platforms.
Yeah, so I have not used Instrumental that much. I'm a little bit familiar with it. It does seem to be becoming very popular. I will speak for other subscription services. This will probably happen to you in your career at some point, where you'll get a call from someone, a salesperson saying, I work for such and such publication. We offer tips on grant opportunities, or we offer intel, information on opportunities. I have found that those services are usually slower than my research routine. So I've tried the free trials before, and it seems to me that it is usually a week or two before they find the information and get it published. Instrumental might be different. I haven't used it, but I found that my own research routine is faster and gives me a little more work time. And typically, I don't know about Instrumental. They might have a different process, but these other services, they have someone like you or me doing this, clicking the links, seeing what's new, and putting it in their publication. So your research routine is going to outperform those services. I hope that helps.
Yeah.
In the chat, I see a question about CFDA numbers. If you Google catalog of federal domestic assistance or just CFDA, you're going to get a website. It might even be cfda.gov. I can't remember the exact site. And it will have a comprehensive listing of CFDA numbers. So that will help you find them. All right, any other questions? All right, I think that's all for now. There's a ton more content, so I want to jump back into that now. I'm going to take questions at the end as well. All right, our next strategy, competitor analysis. The term, I think, might make some of us uncomfortable. It might make us feel a little squeamish, a little squirmy. What do you mean competitor? But it is common in business plans, strategic plans, sustainability plans. What this idea is it involves studying organizations similar to yours and how they fund their mission. I don't like the term competitor, but it's out there in literature. A term I'll use quite a bit is comparable organizations. I'll call them your comps. But funders actually think about this sometimes too. They ask for a competitor analysis. There's a funder in my region that asked me to mention other organizations doing similar work and evaluate my organization and our effectiveness compared to theirs. I hate that question. I've asked them to take it out, but it still persists. I think we're all doing great work and we all deserve the grant. So what competitor analysis is the first thing you do is you identify comparable organizations. Think about your region. Who has a similar mission, vision, or services? Who do we aspire to be like? If we have a great year, who will we be similar to? Who's really successful in getting grants? Make a list. A goal for you is to think of 5 comparable organizations. And again, they need to be in your region, do similar work, have similar services, similar mission, vision, and that will help you find some good intel. All right, once you have your list of a minimum of 5 organizations, Do some research on your comps and their funding strategies. I like to take a quick look at their 990. I like GuideStar. That's a program I've used for a long time. You can get a free GuideStar subscription, and you can take your comps and you can search them on GuideStar and look at their Form 990. I like to start here. I first like to check their revenue figures and think, are they worth studying? You might have a comp in mind and you look at their 990 and their revenue is kind of small, and you might think, well, maybe I won't learn a lot. But if they're bringing in a lot of money, that might be worth studying. So start there. Make sure you want to spend time investigating their funding. While you're at their 990, look to see if they've included Schedule B, Part 1. Some nonprofits leave this in their 990 when they upload it to GuideStar. Schedule B, Part 1 has a list of contributors. If they've left Schedule B on there, jackpot, you've got some intel. Here's an organization similar to yours and who supports them. You'll probably find funders. You might find donors if you're interested in that as well. This is the first place to check. If you don't see that information, go on to step 3 and look at their annual report. A lot of nonprofits will publish a list of funders in their annual report. The list will typically include grants and donations, and it'll be segmented by dollar amount. Create a spreadsheet. Record opportunities that you find from your comps and the analysis that you do. Let me show you some examples of nonprofit annual reports. This is from the Special Olympics of Kentucky. They're extremely successful in raising money from corporations and other foundations and individuals. For those out there that are doing corporate funding, this is a really great strategy. But you'll see here in their list, they've segmented it by amount. They have one generous corporate supporter that's given over $100,000. You'll see some other corporate givers, some foundations. The further along you work, you'll see more foundations, some individuals too. If I were doing work similar to the Special Olympics of Kentucky, this is a great list of prospects for me to think about. Some other examples of nonprofit annual reports. Here's one from an education nonprofit. You'll see they've got a lot of funders, more funders than individuals. Some funders that have given $50,000 and above, $25,000 above, $10,000 and above. And here's another version where instead of giving me the intel, they just put the logos of their supporters. I guess the more money you give, the bigger your logo is. I'm not sure. So that's another way you might see this presented in an annual report. All right, here's some tips for doing competitor analysis. You are not stealing funders from your comps. Some people feel hesitant to use this strategy. They feel like, oh, I'm taking their intel. The people that you find, the funders you find in this process, they've got the capacity to make multiple grants. And they're interested in your sector and your region. Remember, we made our comps based upon who's in our area and who does similar work. You're giving these funders another opportunity to make a difference and to feel great about it. You're giving them an opportunity to achieve their goal by supporting your organization. So don't feel hesitant to use a strategy. It's very common. If you make your list of comps and you go to look for their annual report and you can't find it, there's a way around that. You can become a mystery shopper. The way to do this is to donate a small amount to the organization, and then you will enter their cultivation cycle. They'll start sending you their annual reports and their newsletters, and your name will be on it, which is exciting. You've helped another great organization. But as you start getting that information, you can do this analysis with what you're getting back in communications. I do this with our team here. I donate to some nonprofits just to see what they're doing. And I take the annual report to them and say, hey, prospect this list. It's a strategy that will help you find funders. There are some funders in my portfolio now that I found through this process, including some donors. Once you have these prospects, once you've done this analysis and you've got your spreadsheet, it's time to do a little more homework. Review those funders' websites, check out their 990, and call them. That's really critical as part of this process. Do all the homework you can. But I don't want you to think that you're buying lottery tickets, okay? We're gonna create a relationship. So we're gonna call them. Also, this strategy works for donor acquisition. If you are in a role where you're needing to do individual fundraising, competitor analysis is a great place to start. It'll help you find some generous individuals, especially if they appear on more than one annual report, you know, that they're generous and they'll support multiple organizations. All right, that's competitor analysis. I'm going to go on to our next strategy, and we'll take questions in just a minute. Subscription services and databases. All right, here's a disclaimer. I'm not specifically endorsing any products or services. None of them would write a check. They didn't want to be the official sponsor of how you'd find that funder. This is not going to be a comprehensive review of products and services. I just want to give you some guidelines. If you're new to using subscription services, I think this will be a helpful crash course. All right, federal and state grants. I alluded to this earlier. There are some subscription services out there. They're inferior to a research routine. So some of them, I think they're called like Federal Grants Monitor. It's something like that. You're probably going to get a call from their salesperson. If they're on this call, I apologize for talking down your product. But I really do believe that your research routine will be far superior. You'll find out information more quickly. It takes them days or weeks to get the info to you. And in that time, great organizations are already working on their applications. So I wouldn't subscribe to those services. I do my own homework. But foundation grants, on the other hand, I think this is a place where you could invest in a product. There are many different commercially available products. Someone mentioned instrumental earlier. I'm going to show you a few in just a minute as well. I encourage you, if you want to get more into foundation funding, at least once per fiscal year, try out a foundation subscription service and create a prospect list. Now, I don't know each of your organizations. Some of you, this might be your bread and butter. You might be doing only foundation grants. In that case, it's probably more important than once a year. But if this is just part of your funding stream, part of your diversification, at least once a year, try something out. Your public library may have a subscription service, so start there. There's a way to get it for free. Here's a few that I'm familiar with that I've used in my career. Foundation Search is one that I used early on to find some foundation funders in my area or that supported my community. It was pretty expensive, but it was very powerful. It was useful. I think at that time they only did an annual subscription, so that's why it was expensive. Take a look at it though, if you're looking for a service. Foundation Directory Online, this is one that's pretty popular. What I like about them is it's powerful, has a lot of data, but you can do the 1 month subscription. And I think it's $200. And so there are times where I'll get the 1 month and use it a ton for that month and do all my prospecting for the year and then cancel the subscription. So that could be an avenue for you. GrantStation is one that's out there. If you're a GPA member, you get this one free with your GPA membership. Worth checking out. GrantWatch is a little bit of a cheaper alternative. I like they've got a 1 week subscription for $18. So I'll get on and try that for 1 week and find some things that maybe I haven't seen before. So I encourage you to try this out sometime in your fiscal year. Some search tips. When you look at these services, they have filters and search parameters that will help you narrow the results down to some good fit funders. My favorite tools to use are geographic region and keyword searches. I look for funders that make grants in my geographic region. That's my first search filter. Do they fund in this area? I prefer county over state. So GrantStation, I think if you use that one, they'll only go down to the state level. It won't go down to the county level. And that's a little bit of a frustration for me. Because someone says they fund in New York, doesn't mean they fund in your part of New York. So I like the services that have that county level filter. It's even better if they're located in your geographic region. And some of these services have that filter too, where you can filter by their location. If they fund in your county and they're located in your county, that's a good prospect. That's probably someone you can cultivate. that you can call, that you can have coffee with, that you can establish a relationship and talk about your organization. Keyword terms that helped me in my career as I've done prospecting, know your sector and the keywords related to your organization. Some examples: early childhood, youth development, arts, health, environment, community development, veterans, the type of work that you do, figure out the keyword terms. Some of these services actually have a menu of keywords, and that's really helpful. Click the ones that are related to your organization and see what comes up. The keyword searches have really helped me find some national funders that make grants in my region. I may not be thinking about some of them, but when I use these keyword terms, I find, oh, look, the Dollar General Literacy Foundation funds in my county. Maybe that would be a good fit for me. So use those keyword terms. Some other uses for these subscription services: they can enrich your competitor analysis. So some of these databases, you can actually enter those comps. You can enter their names into the database and see who's funded them. And you might find out some interesting new information that you're not seeing online. So that might give you some new leads there. So I do that. I enter my comps into the database. These services also help you detect lies. They help you find out some information. So I've had this in my career. I wonder if some of you have experienced this too. There's a funder in your community or nearby. You look at their website and it says, we do not make grants outside of our county. And you're disappointed. You're like, oh, well, I'm just on the outskirts of this county. I really wish I could apply. You go to something like Foundation Directory Online, you enter in the funder's name and you see, lo and behold, they have funded in my county before. What's that all about? Well, the issue is that not all funders follow their stated guidelines. It's the old golden rule. Whoever has the gold makes the rules. Some funders are willing to make exceptions, particularly to their geographic parameters. And that often happens through cultivation. That happens when you reach out to that funder and let them know about this great program in the county next door, and you invite them to come see it, and they get excited about what you're doing, and they say, sure, you know what, you can apply. You can learn some of that information through a subscription service. So that's just a quick crash course on subscription database services. It could be its own class, but I at least want you to know about this tool. All right, place-based prospecting, our next strategy. I see smoke coming off some people's pencils. I know there's a lot of information that we are passing along here. I hope you'll come back to it in the recording and the slides too. Place-based prospecting, just so you know that nearby businesses can be generous supporters. It's a trend you'll see in competitor analysis. As you look at some of your comps, you'll be like, oh, I didn't know that business has money. I didn't know that they gave grants or that they made donations to nonprofits. So as you kind of see that, I just want to walk you through on how to find businesses nearby that can support you. Just to let you know, this strategy can be a little tedious. As you think about corporate grant makers, not all of them have 990s. Not all of them are set up as foundations. Some of them just write checks from their general fund. A lot of them, their websites are not helpful. If you start looking for information, you're like, how do I even apply for a grant? How do I ask for a donation? And most of them require cultivation. Here are some examples. A small business owner donates to several charitable causes. Isn't that nice information to know? Maybe you could cultivate them, get to know that small business owner, tell them about your organization. The National Change Store right up the street, they have a corporate giving program. Wouldn't it be great to start getting grants from them? The factory around the corner is owned by a larger corporation with a giving program. That's good intel. You need to get to know more about that corporation. I think that this can be pretty simple, to be honest with you. I pull up a map, I start a spreadsheet, and I get to Googling. And this is just a screenshot of a Google map. Once upon a time, there was a school that needed a grant, and it was a really crazy idea, and there wasn't a great grant out there, so I started prospecting from nearby businesses. Literally, within just a 2-mile radius, I started writing down business names. Walgreens, Chase Bank, Gordon Food Service, Popeyes, Parker Hannifin Corporation. And I got to Googling and just learned what are the grant making processes of these organizations. If you don't want to do Google Maps, go for a walk with a pencil and a pad of paper, see who's nearby. What I do is I Google the company's name in quote marks, and I try terms like grant, corporate giving, corporate responsibility. And that often leads to information from some of these organizations on how they make grants. I enter their business name into my subscription service to see if they have a foundation. I find out as much information as possible before I contact the prospect. And I do a little, I don't want to call it cyber stalking. Let's call it internet research. I use social media, identify connections. Do I know someone that works at that company? LinkedIn is particularly helpful for that. And honestly, with a lot of these opportunities, we have to begin with cultivation. We need to create some experiences, maybe volunteer opportunities for these companies to get involved in our organization. And that's important because once you finally find the grant application, one of the questions may be, do we have any volunteers that help at your organization? Do you know anyone at our company? You've got to have a name, and this is sometimes how you get a name. You create an opportunity for them to give back and feel great about it. So that's place-based prospecting. Look for funding and the companies around your organization. You can do this for clients too, if you're a consultant. Spend some time on Google Maps, making a list, doing some searching. All right, we're getting close to the end here. Y'all push through with me. Prospecting from program data. So information from your programs can be used for prospecting. You really need to start by getting familiar with your organization's data. And you may need to talk to the program people at your organization or your clients. Get familiar with the data that you have on hand. Ask some questions. This is really great when you're new to an organization. I say that I'm the new guy for as long as I can, just to ask all the annoying questions. Do we have internal data systems? Do we have some sort of data dashboard that spits out information for us? Do our programs have to submit reports quarterly or annually to funders? Can I see those reports? Can our program people, can they aggregate data? Can they collect data about participants? If you get some yeses to these questions, you probably can turn that into prospecting leads. Here are 3 suggestions on how to prospect from program data. First, through demographic data. Ask your programs and their staff for demographic data profiles. I need to know about the people that we help. Some information I like to ask for: ethnicity, income levels, disability diagnosis, education levels, employment status, veteran status, languages spoken, refugee immigrant status, foster care placement, homelessness. Depending on your sector, this list could get longer. I need to know the percentage of people that we serve that meet these different categories in different areas. And so ask your program people for this information. Once you have that, what stands out? Once you have demographic profiles on your programs, what stands out to you? Or any of the populations you work with numerically significant? Maybe a way to look at that is the percentage of people that you serve with a disability. Is that higher than the state rate or the county rate, state averages? Maybe that's a significant population for you. Have any populations increased in recent years? Are you serving more veterans than you've ever served before? Turn those data points into prospecting leads. One way to do this is you have one of those database services, do some new keyword searches. If we're serving more veterans than we've ever served before, well, who are some of the veterans, veteran supporting organizations and funders that support my community? Maybe I should be prospecting them, cultivating them. Do keyword searches for veterans and see who are some of the funders that support that. This also could be used for your comps. If you're serving more refugees and immigrants than you've ever served before, well, think about the refugee immigrant service organizations in your area. Do comp analysis on them. Who supports them? Those are some leads for you on funding. So that's prospecting from demographic data. Prospect from employer connections. Something for you to talk to your organization about, your program people. Ask them, can we ask participants or parents, guardians, if you work with kids, about their employment status and their employer? Can that be a question we put on application forms or enrollment forms? Think through that with your program people, make sure it's appropriate ethically. If you're allowed to do it, I highly encourage you to ask for employer information, because then you can export that information and you can see who are some of the businesses that we serve their employees, who do we help quite a bit, and then use that information in cultivating prospects. So I've done this before with an organization where it turned out we were serving lots of people that worked for Kroger, a local grocer. So that actually gave us some footing with the local Kroger company and our connection to talk about funding. I learned about their grant process, and I had to be able to put on my form an employee's name. So I was able to talk to the manager and put them on our list and put them on the application. So you can prospect through this, get some leads of employers that you're working with. All right, prospecting from financial data. Ask your financial people for some leads. I do this, I've done this recently. It's a really great way to find some corporate giving leads, some corporate grant making. Get a list of 10 vendors you spend the most money with. Ask your clients for this if you're a consultant. Here are the 10 vendors you spend the most money with. And then research those companies and their corporate giving and their grant making. Someone that needs to be on that list is your bank. Whoever you bank with as a nonprofit or as an organization, whoever your clients bank with, they probably have a very generous grant making process, and they like to give to their clients. They have a business interest in making you feel good about them. And that's true for a lot of your vendors. Do the research, do the Googling, figure out what their grant process is or corporate giving process is, and then talk to your point of contact with that vendor. We're looking for support. We want to help more people. We want to improve our programs. Do you know anything about the grant process at your company? And they probably will be useful to you. This also works really well for sponsorships. If you're ever doing an event, a 5K, a gala, this is a great way to find some of your potential sponsors. They want to keep your business. So prospect from financial data. All right, last one here, field trips. This is a fun way to prospect. In your community, go where there's culture. Go to the zoo, the museum, the science center. If there's an orchestra, a theater, an art gallery, a library, look for named exhibits. Look for donor recognition walls. If you go to the play, look on the back of the program and who supported it. And you're going to find prospects. And when you visit these places, you need to pretend to take family pictures. This is really important. Take some people with you. Say, hey, kids, can you scooch a little closer to that donor recognition plaque so I can get this intel? My kids have learned just to roll with it. I get a few eye rolls and laughs, but they're cool with it. But yeah, seriously, I have found funders by visiting places like this and seeing who's thanked. It's a way to find some intel. And maybe you could convince your boss that you need an expenses paid trip to the zoo. That might just work out for you. It'd be a good, fun way to prospect. All right, so that is our 6 strategies. I know we went through them so fast and also some technical difficulties in the very beginning, but I wanna pause now for questions. I'm gonna check the chat, put your questions in there. While you're formulating questions or comments, anything you wanna chime in with, I wanna ask you for a favor. I'm part of a group that's called the Grant Application Research Group. We're doing some research. We're going to do several studies, and we're looking for research participants. Our first study is on the effect of online grant applications on grant reviewers. And we're looking for volunteers to spend 1 hour reviewing a short grant application and completing an anonymous questionnaire. We're doing this study in the summer. We've been approved to present our findings at the next national GPA conference. So if you could do that, I would much appreciate it. The sign up is there. I'll put the link in the chat too, but that would help us just advance our work and make a difference for our field. So I'll put the link in the chat. If you're willing to do that, that would be awesome. All right, I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to look in the chat for questions. Oh, do I have a system for rating prospects? That's a great question, Laura. I don't. What I typically do is if I'm doing the comp analysis, if someone shows up in more than one annual report, they end up higher up on the list. I'll move them up. But I don't do like any scoring system. You probably could. There'd probably be a really cool way to do that. Laura, I think you should tackle that topic and then you should present about it because we all can learn from it. I'm sure there's a really cool way to do that. I'll say as I look at federal grants, I do kind of a risk reward assessment. I make sure there are a lot of awards being made and just to kind of assess how competitive it will be. If a federal agency is making fewer than 10 grants nationally, that's a pause for concern for me. That means there are probably hundreds of organizations working on their apps. They're going to be really strong. It's going to be super competitive. If it's more like in the 50 range, I feel much better. I feel like we've got a decent shot. But if we've had a great fiscal year, we might take a swing at something. So I'm always just kind of doing the risk reward calculation there. I don't know if that helps, Laura, address your question, but that's my initial thoughts on it. So any other questions? All right, one more thing I just want to put in the chat is if you want to keep up with me, a great place is LinkedIn. I'm very active. I post articles and webinars that I see out there. So I'm just going to put my LinkedIn profile in the chat. Please reach out to me. If you have questions, you can message me on there. Honestly, it's probably the best way to reach me. My inbox is kind of a disaster right now. So you might get a quicker response through LinkedIn. I'd love to connect and I'd love to see what you're up to. I learn things from folks on LinkedIn. I think it's a great place to connect and network. So please add me, I'll add you and look forward to seeing what you're doing. Any other questions about this presentation, about prospecting? I think we're running up against our time limit here a little bit, Deb. I don't know what you think, but I'm happy to take a couple more questions.
Jason, I think you're right. I think that if we're not hearing questions, Allison has posted a survey in the chat that I just want to draw everybody's attention to. I also absolutely don't want to steal anybody's thunder if they do have a question for Jason before we end. I don't hear anything.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. I saw people on camera that look like they're engaged, and that's really helpful. Thank you so much. You never know what's happening out there in the internet. So I'm glad you all enjoyed the presentation. Thanks for letting me do it. I had a good time. Thank
you, Jason. It was phenomenal.
Yes, thank you so much. It was great. Some new ideas. If anybody wants to, if you fill out the survey, we'll share it with Jason. If you got some new ideas, if you learned something new, it's very helpful for him. It's helpful for us to know if we're meeting your needs. And I dropped again in the chat next events for GPLH coming up in June. All right. Well, thank you all. Thank you so much. And we'll be sending the Zoom link out in a week or so. And the PowerPoint, are we sending the PowerPoint out? Yes.
I've sent the slides. So yeah, feel free to distribute them. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great afternoon.
I have to rent some kids, Jason, when I go to the zoo next time.
There you go. Scooch a little closer to that donor wall. Cool. See y'all later.
Bye-bye.
You want to stop the recording, Allison?
Yes. Why do I never remember these things?
Fine.